Here at Good Day Extra, we are excited to announce we are launching our very own book club called Extra Good Books.
Yeah, this is very exciting. So each quarter, we're going to announce a brand new book penned by a local Ohio author. The following month, we'll check in, discuss it, and feature a special segment, even an interview related to the current title that we're all reading.
Yes. So, without further ado, this month we are reading There Is Always This Year by Hanif Abdurraqib. So this New York Times bestseller has been labeled one of the most anticipated books of 2024 by Time, NPR, and a plethora of other accredited book review organizations.
So growing up in Columbus, Ohio in the 1990s, Hanif witnessed the golden era of basketball, one in which legends like LeBron James were forged and countless others unfortunately weren't.
So his lifelong love of the game leads the author into a lyrical, historical, and emotionally rich exploration of what it means to make it, who we think deserves success, and the very notion of role models, all of which he expertly weaves together in this intimate, personal storytelling book. So I follow him on Instagram, and he is amazing. The fact that he lives in Columbus is just a coincidence because he's like super famous and he's like amazing, a great writer. Even his Instagram captions are so good. So I'm excited for this book. And I picked like a book that I thought both of us might like. So yeah, it's exciting.
You're like, all right, let's get sports in here so Cameron will, no, it's going to be, especially you think of that era. And I'm so excited to see from the Columbus perspective what that's going to be like. I mean, it's homegrown right there.
I love it. So exciting. So this summer, we launched our Extra Good Books Club and kicked it off with There's Always This Year on Basketball and Ascension by Hanif Abdurraqib.
Yeah, the author is a poet, which you really feel in this book, an essayist, and a cultural critic from right here in Columbus. He's also the recipient of a MacArthur Foundation Genius Grant. Now, the book is a memoir of sorts with sections broken down like a basketball game. You'll see these times throughout the pages as you make your way through with quarters and even a countdown clock.
That was really cool how you broke it down that way. This book got a lot of buzz before it was even released back in March. It has super high reviews online, and recently former President Obama included it in his famous summer reading list. There it is right there. The list only includes 14 books. So that is an enormous honor for him to be included on that list.
And I do want to give a shout out to Alissa Henry because she picked this one. And the fact that you picked a book that our former president actually picked, like I feel like he got the recommendation from you.
When I saw this list, I was like, oh my gosh, me and former President Obama are reading the same books. Like, this is amazing. Like, I feel so amazing. Like,
she said in the hallway, she says, I feel so smart. So in the book, it's really fascinating. He talks about growing up here in Columbus in the 90s. He graduated from Beechcroft, and he describes high school basketball during that time, including the rise of LeBron James, but also other Ohio basketball legends that anyone following the game back then would absolutely recognize.
Yes, and as someone who also grew up in Columbus at the same time, I understood so many of his references. It was like talking to a friend reading it. I was even texting one of my friends and be like, look at this part, look at this part. But one of my favorite passages is when he talks about stalking an ex on social media. So he says this, he says, I am unsure why any of us would pursue this. The anxiety of scrolling through our past, lightly of course, so as not to trigger any dreaded accidental liking of a week's old photo or even months old, depending on exactly how down bad you might be, doesn't make sense to me even in the rare times that I find myself doing it. And that's just one example of the way that he writes, so poetic and just so relatable in that way.
He's a very artistic writer. It's one thing to tell a story, it's another to interweave so many different themes that we'll get to in a second. But what was really cool, on top of all that, Hanif was featured at the Columbus Book Festival over the summer, and Alissa got to talk to him there about his book.
I think this is why Obama picked him. Let's take a look.
There you go.
Joining me, we have Hanif Abdurraqib. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So There's Always This Year on Basketball and Ascension. That is the book that everyone was waiting for 2024, and it's out and it's ready. People are reading it right now. Tell us a little bit about your book.
It is a book that, yes, is about basketball. I think if you come to it looking for a story about basketball, you'll find that. If you come to it looking for a story about fathers and sons, you'll find that. My father is very prominent in it. But what it also is if you're from here, or perhaps if you're from any place you love, but specifically from Ohio and maybe specifically from Columbus, you'll really see a story about what it is to love a place and not want to leave a place. There's a lot of Columbus in this book. I am a Columbus kid. I went to Columbus City Schools K through 12. There's a lot of rich history of this place during the 90s and early 2000s when I was a kid that I think people will be able to gravitate towards. And mostly it's a love letter. It's a love letter to Columbus. It's a love letter to Ohio. And everyone else from anywhere else can come along for the ride. But it's a book that really means a lot to me to be from here and to write.
It was so great talking to him, and this was before the book festival opened, but there were people who were there early. So what you can't see is the queue of people lining up to meet him.
Oh my
get them to sign their
gosh.
books, and I'm like, sorry I have you out here with everybody waiting. But that was really cool.
It's a really good read, and he mentioned it in there, like especially the elements and the different themes. One, especially with his dad. I mean, as a dad, obviously you're going to connect to that, but man, he is a poet. I will say, tip for reading this book: make sure you have like no other distractors, because again, as a poet, he brings a lot of metaphors and analogies, so you want to make sure you're focused. But I know you really loved it.
Yeah, I really did love that. I loved reading it. I loved how you talked about wanting to leave a place, wanting to stay. Just amazing. Great job, Hanif. But that brings this book's chapter to a close. We'll be announcing our next extra good book selection in September, so stay tuned for that.
Ooh, and that brings us to our question of the day. We want to know, what is a book that you could read over and over again?
Let us know on our Good Day Extra Facebook page. We're going to share some of your answers later on in the show.